This question is one that I've received time and time again. What advice do I have for you? And my answer is simple. Buy Bitcoin. This is absolutely not financial or investing advice. What's up everybody, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to share 5 reasons to buy Bitcoin right now ahead of 2021 in late December 2020. Now I have to admit, I think that this video is one of the most important videos that I've ever made or that I'm ever going to make, in the sense that I think it's one of the most insightful ones, perhaps the most rewarding ones. So I would highly encourage you to watch the video in its entirety. It'll take you only 10 to 20 minutes if you watch it in 2 times speed. I will put timestamps in the description below so that you can skip to parts that you're interested in, but still, I do urge you to watch it all, especially if you're someone who either doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, or maybe you're someone who's been very bearish about Bitcoin. Hopefully this video will basically make you want to buy Bitcoin. And if you're someone who's been bullish about Bitcoin, you're into the space, the crypto space, then hopefully you'll find the video insightful, you'll agree with it, and you'll share it with a lot of people that you know. Now I do have to give the mandatory disclaimer that nothing that I'm going to be saying in this video is financial advice, nothing is investing advice. I'm merely sharing my own opinions, my beliefs. I do have strong beliefs about Bitcoin, but these are just mine, no financial advice. And at the end of the day, you should do your own research, especially in the crypto space. There's a lot to learn, a lot to educate yourself on, and you should come to your own conclusions. By the way, funny story, I actually have been planning to make this video for about 3 weeks now. I was really hoping to release this video before Bitcoin blew through the all-time high and the 20,000, US dollar mark. Unfortunately, I missed the timing, but the good news is that this is just the beginning. I believe that this is just the beginning. We are still so early in the Bitcoin space, so to speak. So sit tight and watch this video. Now, just a super quick summary of my background in the crypto space. I was introduced to Bitcoin like many other people back in 2017, right around the peak of the bull run or a little bit before the peak of the bull run. When I got into Bitcoin back then, I viewed it as this speculative asset, this thing that could kind of be like a lottery ticket to the moon. And of course, it wasn't, at least back then. We saw the price, it went all the way up to 20,000 or almost 20,000, and then it crashed down. And we had a 3-year bear market, really like gruesome bear market for Bitcoin for the past 3 years. But during those 3 years, I really dove more into the space, did a lot more research, got more educated. And now I'm at a point where I'm completely different compared to 2017. Whereas back then I viewed Bitcoin as this speculative investment, something almost irresponsible to do to invest in Bitcoin. Now I don't at all view it as a speculative investment, and if anything, I think that now it's irresponsible not to be in Bitcoin, not to be exposed to Bitcoin. And hopefully the 5 reasons that I'm about to share are going to bring you a little bit closer to my stance. Now, before I jump into the first reason, I want to make it very clear that the premise that these 5 reasons are built on top of or are based on is the premise that Bitcoin is, amongst other things, a store of value that is comparable to gold. It's like digital gold, to the point where it will eventually either entirely replace gold or at least coexist with gold at the scale that gold currently has. So if gold right now has a market cap of around $9 trillion, whereas Bitcoin only has a market cap of about 427 billion when I last checked a couple of minutes ago, and that means that for Bitcoin's market cap to reach gold's market cap, it has to go up by a factor of 21. So that means that there's room for Bitcoin to over 20x from here. So for the price of Bitcoin to get multiplied by over 20x, even maybe way more than that. That is the premise that this video is built on and that the 5 reasons are based on. And I realize that some of you might disagree with this premise. This is where hopefully the reasons will kind of push you into believing this premise. And again, you do have to do your own research. There's a lot of stuff to learn about Bitcoin, a lot of things to learn about the technology that will hopefully make you more and more adopt this premise. And by the way, at the end of the video, I'll share the social media links of a lot of different people in the space that I think are very worth following, that hopefully will make you buy into this premise a little bit more. But so with that, let's jump into these 5 reasons. And I suppose that if I didn't make it clear before, these 5 reasons really really support the idea that the price of Bitcoin is going to go up, especially in 2021 and beyond. So let's start with reason number 1. And here I suppose there should even be a reason number 0, which is that if Bitcoin can go 20x from here or over 20x, then of course it's a no-brainer to invest in Bitcoin. Who doesn't want to 20x their money? But of course here, a lot of you might be saying, well, Clement, we've seen the price of Bitcoin go up a lot, go up drastically, but then fall sharply. Like in 2017. 2017 Bitcoin went to almost 20K and then it completely cratered all the way down to like 3K. So what's to say that this isn't going to happen right now or very soon? And here, this is reason number 1, it's that the latest rally of Bitcoin, the latest price rise of Bitcoin over the last few months or last even half year is not comparable to the Bitcoin bull market that we saw in 2017. You see, in 2017, the bull market and the price appreciation of Bitcoin was largely driven by FOMO, by fear of missing out from retail investors, normal people like you, like me, who learned about Bitcoin, heard about Bitcoin, saw the crazy media headlines, and jumped into it, were super hungry, they wanted to go to the moon, they wanted to get their Lambos. That's what it was driven by, and so it led to this huge price appreciation and then it cratered. Right now, this is not at all the case. The recent price increase or price appreciation of Bitcoin is not driven by FOMO, by the same kind of FOMO that we saw in 2017. And the simplest proof that I can give for this is if you look at the search interest of Bitcoin on Google, and you can do so by going on Google Trends, you will see a chart that is very telling. So here I'm going to put on the screen charts of the worldwide search interest in Bitcoin over the last few years. I'll show the same chart, but for the United States specifically, the United Kingdom, India, and you'll see that across all these charts, the same thing is clear. In 2017, there was a huge spike in interest from just general people searching on Google Bitcoin. These are normal people like you and I. And then that interest fell sharply following the price crash in 2017. And since then, there has been almost no interest in Bitcoin on Google. You see that the chart is almost completely flat. There are a few recent bumps, but not much at all. And even more interesting here is the fact that, like I said, I've been preparing this video for about 3 weeks, and when I saw that Bitcoin broke through the all-time high in 20,000 and that it was, trending worldwide on Twitter, I was like, okay, now the FOMO is going to come in, people are going to jump in, people are going to, want to buy Bitcoin. And yet, no, look, the trends are still pretty flat. There's still remarkably very little interest from the general population compared to 2017. So the fact that Bitcoin is now well over 20,000, at 23,000 with zero FOMO from retail investors is extremely bullish and a very bullish indicator that the price will continue to go up from here. I want to make a very quick side note here and mention that if you look up certain countries for Bitcoin interest on Google Trends, like Nigeria, you'll notice very interesting charts. Like for Nigeria, the chart is almost linear. Like there's actually a very steady increase in interest in Bitcoin since 2017. And I think that speaks to something that I'm not going to talk about in this video, but just the general crypto applications and applications of Bitcoin, I suppose. The fact that Bitcoin can serve as this global monetary network that a lot of countries have not really been able to take part in, countries like Nigeria, but they're now experiencing a lot of technological growth, and Bitcoin is kind of this perfect tool for them to plug into a global, financial network and a global technological opportunity. Okay, so now let's move on to reason number 2. Reason number 2 follows from reason number 1, where some of you might be wondering, okay, so if the price appreciation of Bitcoin recently is not due to FOMO, because clearly people aren't really interested in Bitcoin right now, what has been causing the price to go up? How come we broke the all-time high? And the answer is simple. Institutional players. That's right. Right now, at the end of 2020, we are seeing a lot more institutional interest in Bitcoin. And to be honest, I think that throughout the entire year of 2020, we've been seeing this, especially during the last half. Now, what do I mean by institutional players? I think that there are three different types of institutional players here that I'm thinking about. Number one is companies. So we've seen a couple of big name companies actually publicly announce that they're dumping huge portions of their cash reserves into Bitcoin as a store of value and as a sort of defensive measure against, other things. And so the two big names that come to mind here are Square. Square is the company that's run by Jack Dorsey, or at least founded by Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter. And another company is MicroStrategy, run by Michael Saylor, who's like the Giga Chad of the Bitcoin community right now. They've invested basically all of their cash reserves into Bitcoin. Then they bought back a ton of shares from their shareholders who didn't really want to participate in the company anymore and invested the proceeds of that into Bitcoin. Then they effectively went to the public markets and borrowed money to invest in Bitcoin. That's how bullish they are about Bitcoin. But so the point is, we're seeing a lot of these big name companies invest in Bitcoin. We're also seeing a second type of institutional player, big financial companies like funds that are investing non-trivial portions of their assets under management into Bitcoin, in large part because they're realizing that, like I said at the beginning of this video, is irresponsible for them, especially as financial institutions with fiduciary duty to clients and shareholders, not to be exposed to Bitcoin. And that is a huge amount of money. Here we're talking about huge amounts of money, not small people, not small individuals just investing here and there, large amounts of money. And then there are also individual, like ultra high net worth individuals who have publicly said that they're investing a ton in Bitcoin. We're talking about billionaires here, a lot of billionaires who have come out saying, hey, I've invested a non-trivial portion of my net worth into Bitcoin. And so all these big players who have huge sums of money have been investing in Bitcoin, quietly so, although some of them not so quietly lately. That's been causing the price to go up and up. And now, ahead of 2021, is a great time to buy Bitcoin because in 2021, we're going to see more and more of these institutional players get into Bitcoin. And again, here we're talking about huge players, whales, so to speak, who can dump huge amounts of dollars or currencies, fiat currencies, into Bitcoin, and the price will go up. And perhaps the most FOMO-inducing part of this whole, institutional players picture that I'm painting here is the part where you realize that soon a lot of big tech companies are likely going to get into Bitcoin, because already we're seeing some tech companies integrate Bitcoin into their products and services. So you've got the Cash app, which I think is managed by Square, that supports Bitcoin transactions. You've got PayPal. PayPal is a huge announcement in like October or early November that they now support crypto transactions on PayPal. And so what's going to happen when you suddenly get a company like Apple that says not only that it's going to dump a few $1 billion from its cash reserves into Bitcoin because they think that Bitcoin is going to appreciate and they want to protect their cash and they want to 20x their money. And on top of that, they start implementing or integrating Bitcoin rather in Apple Pay and in every iPhone on the market, because that's the beauty of Bitcoin, which ties back to the applications of Bitcoin. That Bitcoin is software, so you can plug it into products and services, unlike gold, where you can't really do anything with gold except put it on jewelry, right? With Bitcoin, you can plug it into stuff and make it useful, or you can actually exchange it super quickly and all that. And so what happens when Apple does that, and suddenly all the other big tech companies start to FOMO, like Google is going to be like, okay, well, I need to put that in Google Pay. I need to put that in every Android phone on the market. Otherwise, iPhone is going to dominate. And then Amazon comes and says, okay, well, I need to put that in Amazon Pay. And then Tesla comes and says, okay, well, I need to integrate Bitcoin into Tesla vehicles so that you can pay with Bitcoin from your car directly. I'm just spitballing here, but you get the idea. Once all of these big institutions, especially tech companies, jump into Bitcoin, it will be wild and the price is going to skyrocket. That's my prediction. And so right now, before they do that, or before they publicly do that, it's time to buy Bitcoin. I desperately need a haircut. My hair will not stay up. Okay, reason number 3. This one is perhaps the scariest of all the reasons, the one that really makes you pause and think, maybe I really should be in Bitcoin, just from a point of view of if I'm not in Bitcoin, I'm not only going to be missing out on potential gains, but I might just be doing myself a big disservice and something scary might happen. I also realize that this is probably the most complicated reason that I can explain in this video, and I fully acknowledge that I'm not the most well-equipped person to explain this reason. I'm not, an expert in this. I'm not an expert in economics. But so reason number 3, I'll try to put it very simply in layman's terms. Reason number 3 is that the current macroeconomic landscape of the world, and let's look maybe just at the US and Europe for now, is such right now in 2020, especially on the backdrop of COVID and everything that happened in March and all that, is really pushing people to flock into Bitcoin, because basically you've got these governments like the US government, the federal government, that are just printing money. Right? Printing money, the whole meme like printer goes brr, right? Money goes brr, and they're printing money out of thin air. And if you can just print money out of thin air, then how valuable is your currency, right? How valuable is the USD? If today you have $1 and then tomorrow some central agency prints a ton of dollars, right? I print a ton more dollars, then suddenly your $1 is no longer worth $1. Suddenly it's worth 85 cents or 80 cents. And when you realize that this can actually happen, it's actually happening right now, that there's an unlimited amount of US dollars that can just randomly be printed at the will of the federal government, you start to think, okay, well, my dollars aren't all that valuable. So I need to find something, a currency that's actually valuable, that's actually got intrinsic worth. And Bitcoin is that currency, because Bitcoin is completely unrelated it's unattached to governments, unattached to fiat currencies. And the beauty of Bitcoin is that it is limited in supply. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. So no one is ever going to be able to print Bitcoin. No one is ever going to be able to just, shove Bitcoin into thin air. No, Bitcoin is fixed. And so Bitcoin is a store of value, and it's effectively a safe haven against the depreciating value of fiat currencies like the US dollar or like the euro. Again, like I said a few minutes ago, this is not a topic that I am an expert in. It's something that there are other people who can do a far better job at explaining. I would highly encourage you to do your own research, to look at other videos where people talk about this macroeconomic landscape, but it is very, eye-opening, and it's one of the reasons that's probably fueling all of these institutional players to get into Bitcoin. Reason number 4 is centered around one data point, a very revealing data point that is extremely bullish as far as the price of Bitcoin is concerned. And that data point, I'll share a couple of charts on the screen here so you can visualize what I'm saying. That data point is basically the fact that the number of Bitcoins stored on exchanges has been drastically going down ever since about February 2020 or March 2020 when COVID hit. The number of Bitcoins stored on exchanges has gone down, meaning Bitcoins have been moved probably to cold storage, and that is extremely bullish as far as the price of Bitcoin is concerned, because when people store Bitcoins on exchanges, the reason they do so typically is because they're actively trading Bitcoin. They're buying Bitcoin and they're selling Bitcoin. If people are moving their Bitcoin off of exchanges, that usually means that they no longer want to sell Bitcoin. They want to keep their Bitcoin. So put simply, the people buying Bitcoin right now do not want to sell Bitcoin. And this trend is continuing it. If you look at the charts, you'll see that even from November 2020, like a month ago to now, it's continuing to go down. So if you look at February 2020, there were 3 million or so Bitcoins stored on exchanges. Now there are only 2.2 or 2.3 million Bitcoins stored on exchanges. That is a big decrease, and it's likely only going to decrease further. So the point is, people who buy Bitcoin do not want to sell Bitcoin. And what does that mean? Why is that bullish for the price appreciation of Bitcoin? It's bullish because of simple supply and demand. If you've got an increasing demand for something and you've got a decreasing supply for that something, then the price will go up. We saw a super simple example of this happen before our very eyes back in February at the peak of COVID, when toilet paper became this thing. People were panicking, people were buying a ton of toilet paper or disinfectant wipes, disinfectant, hand sanitizer. And for toilet paper, you would see that it was sold out everywhere, where you couldn't get toilet paper in stores. And so then people started selling toilet paper, but very few people, most of them didn't want to sell their toilet paper. Kind of like Bitcoin, people moving it to cold storage. And what that meant was that you would go on Amazon and you would see a single toilet paper roll for like $80, right? The price of toilet paper just skyrocketed. Now here, it's the same thing with Bitcoin, except unlike toilet paper, where toilet paper eventually manufacturers of toilet paper were able to create more and more toilet paper to where they could bring them back in stores and the price went back down, with Bitcoin, we're not just going to magically create new Bitcoins, because you can't. Right, there are only 21 million Bitcoins ever going to be created. So you cannot do that. People are going to keep holding their Bitcoins because they don't want to sell them. And so price is going to go up by Bitcoin. Last but not least, reason number 5. This one is very FOMO inducing, if I do say so myself. And this one has to do with millionaires. So if you look at the number of millionaires across the world, according to Wikipedia, there are about 45 million millionaires across the world. And you might assume, based on some of the things I said previously, some of the other reasons, like the fact that tons of institutional players are getting into Bitcoin, clearly there is a growing interest in Bitcoin because the price broke through all-time high, and like people are, you saw the interest, on the Google Trends, it's going up a little bit. Not at all like 2017, but a little bit. So you could imagine that in 2021, 2022, in the next few years, people, especially millionaires who probably have access to the news, to financial advisors who are well educated, whatever, right, they're going to start to ask themselves, maybe I should be exposed to Bitcoin. Maybe I should have one Bitcoin, for example. Because right now, most people think of Bitcoin as you need to have one Bitcoin, except that's not true. Eventually, it's not going to be possible to have a Bitcoin. Eventually, you're going to have to just buy parts of a Bitcoin, Satoshis, the smallest unit of a Bitcoin. But so what if every millionaire in the world eventually realizes over the next few years, especially in 2021, that they should be exposed to Bitcoin and they should have at least one Bitcoin? They're going to start to flock to the exchanges to buy their one Bitcoin, or perhaps a few more than one Bitcoin. But wait, there are only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and that's just the total number of Bitcoins. But like I said earlier, on exchanges right now, there are only like 2.2 or 2.4 million Bitcoins. How do 46 million millionaires get one Bitcoin if there are only 2.2 million Bitcoins right now and everyday people are buying Bitcoin right now? I'll tell you, they don't. The millionaires, the 46 million millionaires, aren't going to each get one Bitcoin. So eventually they'll say, maybe I should have half a Bitcoin. And they won't be able to do that either. Eventually they'll be like, okay, maybe I need a quarter of a Bitcoin, a tenth of a Bitcoin, less than a tenth of a Bitcoin. You get the idea. All these high net worth individuals will want to be exposed to this asset class. They will not be able to get one full Bitcoin. And what that means is that the price is just going to keep going up. A bunch of them will buy one Bitcoin. They'll buy way more than one Bitcoin. Then they'll only be able to buy one Bitcoin, then only half, then a quarter, then a tenth. The price is going to skyrocket. Now's the time to buy ahead of 2021 before all these people want to buy Bitcoin. So these were my 5 reasons for why right now, ahead of 2021, is a great time to buy Bitcoin, why it's just the beginning. I do want to talk about a few other things before I end this video. The first one is other cryptocurrencies, because some of you who are decently well-versed in cryptocurrencies, or at least you've heard of a few, you might be asking yourself, okay, but should I buy Bitcoin or should I buy another cryptocurrency? Because there are a ton of other cryptocurrencies. And here, the truth is, I could make an entire different video. You could make hundreds of videos talking about each cryptocurrencies, talking about the risk of each, talking about the crypto space as a whole. The only thing that I'll say here is, if you are not well-versed in crypto, if you don't know much about crypto, start with Bitcoin. Educate yourself about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is sort of the safe one, the tried and tested one. Ethereum is a close second that has huge potential. I'm super bullish about Ethereum, but it's a close second to Bitcoin. But even that requires much more research. You have to understand the applications of Ethereum. And then if you go past Bitcoin and Ethereum, I would just strongly recommend to do your own research. You have to, at that point, really understand the fundamentals of the coins, of the tech, unless you're just interested in trading. And in that case, just do make sure that you are well-versed in trading and that you know what you're doing. Now, if you're interested in buying Bitcoin and you've never done so in the past, you can look into some of the reputable exchanges out there like Binance, Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken. Just do your own research, but those names should get you somewhere. And then finally, the last thing that I want to share here in this video is a bunch of people that I think are worth following, especially on Twitter, if you're interested in the crypto space and if you want to dive more into it. So I'll list them in the description and in the comments below. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but just a group of people that I would definitely recommend you follow. So of course you could follow me on Twitter if you're interested, but specifically for the crypto space, first of all, I would follow a guy named Balaji. He's just a great person to follow if you really want to understand like the applications of crypto, if you want to really like get a feel for what the grand vision of crypto is. He was like an OG Bitcoin person, discovered it in like 2011 or 2012. Just a brilliant dude, really worth following for that. If you want to follow someone more for just like general, investing stuff about Bitcoin and more digestible content, Anthony Pompliano is probably one of the best names to follow. Then I would definitely follow all the CEOs of all these exchanges. So like Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, CZ, Binance, Changpeng, the CEO of Binance, and I suppose Catherine Colley, the CEO of Binance USA, the USA arm of Binance, the Winklevi twins, Winklevoss twins. I always pluralize their last name. The Winklevoss twins for Gemini. And then I would also recommend following Michael Saylor, whom I mentioned before with MicroStrategy. Michael Saylor has been just like a huge name in Bitcoin and crypto ever since, I think like September or August when he announced that MicroStrategy had dumped all of its cash reserves into Bitcoin. And if you want like genuine gut-wrenching FOMO every single day, then follow him on Twitter. His tweets are just super FOMO-inducing. For example, one of my favorite tweets of his goes something like, "Once you understand Bitcoin, you will go to bed every night with anxiety, feeling chronically short." And I couldn't agree more. Anyway, if you made it this far, then you likely watched this entire video. Thank you for doing that. I really hope that you found it insightful, that you either learned something or maybe that it reinforced stuff that you already knew. Either way, consider sharing this video with other people who might find it useful. Destroy the like button because it helps the video out a lot. More people will see it if you smash the like button, and we want more people to get into the Bitcoin ecosystem. Also, I can't believe that this is one of the first videos that I've ever forgotten to plug my company Algo Expert in. If you're a software engineer preparing for your coding interviews or your systems design interviews, then do check out my company Algo Expert. Go to algoexpert.io and use the promo code CLEM, C-L-E-M, for a discount on the platform. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn if you enjoy short-form written content, Instagram if you like pictures, and I will see you in the next video.